Today I'm going to be ranking all 62 AFL games that I attended throughout the 2024 AFL season. Like last year, I did the same thing with the games in 2023. I ranked all 57 games. So this year, I ended up going to 5 extra games. Last year, I ranked the games into a few categories. So we'll do the same thing in this video. So we've got the bad, we got the okay, the average, the good, the great, and then I'm going to pick the best 5, and they're going to be the 5 the best, obviously, that I'll be putting in at the end of the video. But if you guys want to see something similar to this, maybe like the best games that I streamed during 2024, then get this video to 500 likes, and we'll get that out next week. Okay, the worst game of 2024. This was an Adelaide trip in round 18 where the Saints lost by 32 points against Adelaide. I label this as the worst in-state trip of my life. The game itself was terrible. We only scored 5 goals. I believe 1 after quarter time. It was pouring down, barking down with rain. And I just remember everyone there treating me not very nicely. The security guards, you know, didn't let me in the cheer squad even though it was basically empty. Like, I don't know why I wasn't able to sit down. So I was forced to stand. It was muddy. I got all my stuff dirty. Yeah, really poor game of footy, poor quality. I was up there with Lockie, and I remember he convinced me, the day after, take the long bus back. So after the game, all I was looking forward to was to get on a bus that was an 11-hour trip back to Melbourne. In 61, I've got Melbourne St Kilda. We lost by 38 points. This was the game that really, to me, stuck out to how badly we really were going. I think this ended up being like 3-8, the record the Saints were. The Saints should have lost this game by like 80 points. I remember Melbourne had so many scoring shots and they just couldn't really capitalize. St Kilda were terrible with their ball skills. They couldn't move the ball at all. Max Gawn absolutely dominating this ruck. I remember Lockie was actually sitting with me for this game for a bit as well. So he's involved in the 2 worst games so far this season. In 60th position, we have a Thursday night game. Another Saints one. This was against the Bulldogs. We lost by 10 goals. I remember this game actually thought we were going to win. We were favourites against the Bulldogs team that I think just lost to Essendon. And they had a few outs heading into it. So I was quite optimistic heading into this one. I thought we were really going to give it a good crack and win it. Unfortunately, the game started terribly. I think conceding 7 goals. It was 80 points at one stage. So it got to the point where it was quite laughable. It was on a Thursday night as well. The next day, I had to literally be at work at 6 in the morning. And when your team loses by 10 goals the night before, let's be honest, it doesn't give you motivation to get up very early for work, does it? In 59th position, this is St Kilda's biggest loss of the season against Brisbane. It was 85 points. Now, it was round 21. I didn't expect the Saints to lose by this much, obviously, heading into it. You know, you can have one of those really bad games against a really good side that obviously ended up winning the flag. There were bits of this game that I actually enjoyed. Like, I was there in the old 29 area. Some of their chants taking the piss out of how bad we were doing were quite funny. But ultimately, it was a train wreck of a game from start to finish. This was also another game during the period where we were just really crap. This is the week before that Melbourne game against the Dockers. Only lost by 17 points. It was kind of another, you could argue, close loss. I wouldn't call it a close loss though. I'd call it a 30+ point loss. I sat there with UCAT. I remember the atmosphere was absolutely dead. He was rubbing it into me as well, which didn't make the experience very good. And I remember being really tired heading into this game as well, because I just came back from Sydney. I just remembered we showed literally nothing this game. We lacked so much inspiration. Now in 57th spot, this is the first neutral game. Geelong Hawthorn at GMHBA. I was quite excited to head to this game because of the fact that Hawthorn, they were in their really good form up against the Cat side, who were obviously also going quite well at GMHBA for the first time against the Hawks in like ages. So I was quite excited for this game. Basically straight away, I had a feeling this game was going to be crap. Well, for starters, I was sick that day, so I was almost considering not even going. I got convinced, you know what, I will go. I missed that Geelong train that, you know, only departs every bloody hour, it seems. So I ended up getting there to the game late, and the game was really boring. Hawthorn really didn't show anything at all. Geelong were too good. It was a boring game. In 56th spot, we've got Essendon St Kilda, the first game. It was a good game scoreboard-wise, but obviously this is going to be up there because we lost to Essendon, and they're my least favourite side. We lost in a thriller. This was during the start of the year where I thought we were going to be quite a good side, so I didn't expect us to lose to Essendon. We bombed the ball way too much in the last quarter. We had a lot of chances that we just wasted. And Stringer, of course, kicked that match-winning goal. The Essendon fans absolutely gave it to me. And I just couldn't be bothered with it. Like, the amount of shit I got after this game was it might almost be the most after any game of footy this season. Now, speaking of another bad, close game, I've got Geelong St Kilda, round 1, just ahead. Now, I could have had this game a little bit higher or lower. Regardless, it was definitely going to go on the bad tier because a few bad things happened to me during this game on top of the result. Like, obviously the result was pretty frustrating because I feel like we could have won the game. We had chances. I remember I lost my phone in the entire second half, and I honestly thought someone nicked it. So that was also something I had to deal with. Their fans are certainly quite annoying up there in the Cattery, and of course they're going to let you know about it. And I know it was round one. The vibes are a little bit higher round one for footy. First game back, but it's quite a bad one when you lose to the Cats by 8. Now in 54th position, we have Richmond Freo at the MCG. I do include games that I only went to for, only a few moments. I only went to this game for like a second. So you guys might remember the video where I traveled to every game in a certain round in a unique way. This game I had to get there via running. I very easily could have not made it to this game, but I made it with 1 second to spare. Because I only made it to this game with 1 second to spare, I watched none of it, so I can't have it too much higher. I rated it higher than all those other St Kilda losses, because at least with this game, I was actually celebrating that I made it to the game. In 53rd spot, I've got Hawthorn Sydney at the MCG. I was really tired for this game. I remember vividly, it was an Anzac week where I got no sleep, and I was hoping for, well, a decent game, but instead I got a game where I really should have just fallen asleep to, because Hawthorn, this is when they were really bad. Like, they just got a win the week before, but they just went back to crap. I was supposed to film for Haz. He didn't end up getting the video out. I was completely redundant as a filmer. The Hawthorn cheer squad vibes were not high. They lost by 76 points, and it wasn't a great game of footy. The only highlight was maybe, I don't know, the Lance Franklin lap of honour. In 52nd spot, we have another game of the MCG during Anzac round, Richmond v Melbourne. I feel a little bit bad in putting a big game in Anzac Day Eve so low, considering it was the first time I actually went to one of these games. And don't get me wrong, I got there early. The pre-game was really cool, seeing the lights go down and them lighting the torch. So that was very cool. The pre-game alone would be top 10. But when you consider the entire game, it was just so boring. Like, nothing happened. There was really not much of an atmosphere either, both ends for some reason. I was with quite a number of people there as well, and they were so bored. Like, I remember the third quarter, we just wandered around the MCG and didn't even bother watching the game until I decided, well, I'm here at the footy for the footy. I might as well watch the rest of the game, but it wasn't good. In 51st place, we have Richmond Port Adelaide in round 2. Now, I remember I went to this game filming a round 2 vlog, and I wanted to maybe see if I can go to the footy for the last, I don't know, quarter and a bit. And I actually had a really good time. Like, I didn't really go with anyone. I think I ended up finding a wild sporting loo somewhere around the seats at some stage. I didn't really do much there. I'm going to put it in bad for the sake that I only went there for a quarter, and it wasn't really that memorable of a game. Like, nothing really memorable happened, but I remember I had a decent time. In 50th spot, I have Hawthorn St Kilda, round 9 in Tassie. We lost by 5 points, so we lost in a close one. It's going to probably have to be in the bad tier. I'm bumming a bit high because it was actually kind of fun to experience a unique new ground for the first time in UTAS Stadium. The first time I was in Tassie, first time at UTAS, an interesting ground. I was there with football sirens. I was there with a mate who made it to the last 5 minutes, even though he was supposed to get there at the start of the game. So the whole Tassie experience is quite fun. The game wasn't, though. We had chance to win, but we couldn't. And then Hawthorn, we all know what happened from that point onwards. They went on to win a lot of games, and the Saints went on to lose a lot of games. 49th position, we have Collingwood and Port Adelaide at the MCG. Now, I went to this game for like a half. I went after a Div 12 Reggie's game, so because I didn't go for the whole game, it's not ranked very highly. Collingwood, when I was there, they just piled on the goals. I remember Zay Burnell was really upset because I was sitting, I think, in the Port cheer squad for the last bit and a half for this game. But yeah, ultimately, it wasn't a great game of footy. It was kind of enjoyable seeing Collingwood score a few goals. The atmosphere was pretty good for a Saturday Arvo game. In 48th spot, we have St Kilda and Port Adelaide, where we lost by 2 points. We never beat Port Adelaide, so it was once again not a surprise that we lost. But the reason why it's not lower is because I always had a feeling we were going to lose, and we did contend quite well. It was quite a hard game to watch, though, at times, though. Quite low scoring, as it always is for a Saints game. But we had chances. We just never seem to get it done in these sort of close games. There was another similar one to a few other close games we lost this year. But Port Adelaide always seemed to find a way against the Saints, and we ended up losing by 2 points. 47th spot, we have the first and only game at Mars Stadium, the Bulldogs and the Suns. Now, I missed my Mars Stadium train by a second, and I got to this game almost at half time. So I was quite annoyed. Like, you get to Mars Stadium, you want to actually make it for the whole game. It was a nice chill game. It was good to get a good seat with Blaze 17. That was fun, but ultimately nothing much happened in this game. The game in itself, it was whatever. The Suns didn't really put up a fight. The Dogs won by 48 points, but it was a good day out of the footy. 46th spot, we have Hawthorn and Collingwood at the MCG. The Hawks won by 66 points. Now, you could make the argument this game deserves to be higher. Memorable in the sense that Guinea, what he did with the Collingwood supporters, but he did that on the other end, so I didn't even end up remembering actually seeing it at the game. All I remember is that the game was just wet. It was just wet all game, and Collingwood, that was kind of the start of their downfall throughout the rest of the season. Okay, in 45th position, we have another Collingwood game at the MCG. Collingwood Geelong. I do remember I wanted to sit in the Geelong cheer squad. I was with AFL Go to HQ. They basically told us both to get fucked, so we had to find our own way out of it. So we had really bad spots for this game. We couldn't really see heaps of it. I remember it was a bit of a weird night. I was contemplating leaving this game big time at half time. I decided to stay. It ended up being all right with the atmosphere. The atmosphere was good, but the game wasn't too memorable. It's a Friday night, but I'm still only going to rank it quite low in 45. In 44, we have another Friday night game in round 23, Essendon v Sydney. Now, I don't really know why I went. I kind of just felt like going to a random Friday game instead of streaming it. And I remember Sammy, he had some tickets, went with Go Time, and it was quite a dull game of footy. Like Essendon, once again, providing no spark on a Friday. They should have really been up by a lot more in the first half. Remember, then Sydney just dominated in that second half. I tipped the Bombers, which was a stupid idea to do so. Sammy threw a scarf off level 2. That was probably the biggest highlight of the night. In a night where there weren't too many highlights. And the final game in the bad tier, we have another Friday game. Some of these Friday games haven't been as good as we thought. Essendon, the Western Bulldogs, another neutral game, the only game of round 6 that I went to. And I went to this game with a few of my schoolmates who went for Essendon and the Bulldogs, so I was actually the only neutral one there. The Bombers obviously were the team that won that game, but they won by a lot in the end actually, and I thought it was going to be the Bulldogs. I remember the crowd was actually really good, but we had the worst seats. We were at the very far back of the level because they all ended up getting there late, and the crowd ended up being, I think, over 50,000, so it was the biggest Marvel crowd in quite a while. That bumps it up a little bit. The atmosphere was really good. All right, we're finalized with the bad games, but now we're actually getting into the average tier where all the average games start getting ranked. The first game on the list in 42nd spot, we have Geelong and Essendon at the MCG. Why did I go to this game considering Geelong and Essendon are two sides I hate? Maybe because I just felt like going, I guess. I was in the city after a Resi's game. I decided to just wait it out and go to the game. So I did. I think in the first quarter, I was just sitting by myself, and it would have probably been ranked the lowest game because it was so crap. But then I found Checkers and Jim Brady, so I sat with them for the rest of the game, and that was quite good. I had a chat with them, used their new phones that they had to zoom in on some of the plays, so that was quite fun. I don't remember much of the game though, to be honest, even though I was there. I more just remember using the phone to zoom in on certain bits of the game that they like to do for their TikTok. 41st, we have another game at the MCG, and it was also on a Friday, Carlton v Geelong. Blues smashed the Cats. This is during a period where I thought the Cats are going to miss out on finals altogether and the Blues were going to finish top 2. The roles basically reversed there after that. But the Blues were so good that game. They just kept piling on the goals in the Geelong cheer squad, and they were massive fights. So that made the game better for the entertainment-wise. But when you go to a Friday game, you want to see a contest, and there wasn't really a contest at this game. 40th spot. Speaking of Friday games, we have Sydney and Carlton. At the SCG though, now over the last couple of years, UCAT, myself, and now Crouchy, we go to a random neutral game and have a cool experience for the day, go to a game, see what happens. The game was this game because of the UCAT dart video that he made. The problem was though, once again, we didn't pick a very good game. This game was so average that I didn't bother releasing my vlog for it. And this is that game where I broke the screen from my camera as well. Sydney just solidified themselves as the best side in the competition after this game because it was kind of like the two best sides going at it in this one, I'm pretty sure. But, Sydney were way too strong. 39th position, we have a game in round 1 between the D's and the Dogs, 109 to 64. Something about me going to round 1 D's Dogs games. Yeah, this game was alright. I got to the game, I think in the second quarter, because I was still coming back from Geelong after the footy the night before, stayed the night at someone's house. The D's blew out in the last quarter. I was there with a few other people. I remember Sporting Lou, that was the first time I met him. He provided good entertainment, actually. I remember I was actually getting good entertainment from him because I was still hungover from the night before. For some reason, this is one of the funniest games I've ever been at. It was a chill game, level 1, just sitting front row. Really good weather. In 38th position, we have the King's birthday clash between Collingwood and Melbourne. Really not that great of a game. I remember a bit of footy invited me. He had some pretty decent level 2 seats, but I focused more about uploading my Saints Gold Coast vlog at the game than actually watching the game because it wasn't that good. I mean, Petrarca got injured. That was probably the biggest memorable highlight, but Melbourne were just bad. This is honestly the game where Melbourne became really bad to finish off their year. But regardless of the result, it was still relatively enjoyable. That's why it's not that far down lower. In 37th spot, we have another relatively comfortable win for a team. It's North and Hawthorn at Marvel. Now, this is in round 6 with Hawthorn. I don't think they had a win yet to their name. I'm pretty sure both sides were the only two sides yet to get a win, North and Hawthorn, and I call it the Wooden Spoon Cup. Very ironic now that we know how Hawthorn turned out. I was in the Hawthorn cheer squad. I was there with Haz. Took the piss out of Northy. Menza was there. My mate Callum was there. So a pretty fun day at the office. I vlogged it, but once again, the game just wasn't good enough to be ranked too many tiers higher. In 36th spot, we have Carlton and Gold Coast at Marvel, round 11. Now, I only went to this game, I think, for a half. I remember this was during a period where I was really focusing on fantasy before I completely gave up. And I had a lot of fantasy plays in this game. So I was actually taking a lot of notice and attention into this game. And the game was all right. Obviously, the Blues ended up winning, but I thought Gold Coast competed quite well. It was one of those games where you just didn't have to worry about anything. You could just go to the footy, relax, and that's exactly what I did. Didn't worry about content. Just went to the game to relax and watch a pretty solid second half. And I think after the game, Will and I went out and had a pretty good dinner as well. So it was a pretty good day at the office. 35th position, we have the first game from Gather Round, and the one ranked lowest is the Brisbane v North game at Norwood. Now, it's hard to rank the Gather Round games compared to some of the other ones because the experiences were all good. This one's the worst game because North were really uncompetitive, to be honest, and I'm pretty sure I left this game a little bit early to try and get to Port Essendon on time. And the highlight of this game would probably have to be before the game, I'd almost say, because Norwood doesn't have nets behind the goals, so all the players training and kicking the balls, it's just a free-for-all with footies, and you just don't get that very often in this day and age anymore. But, I had the opportunity to take a few marks. In 34th spot, I've got arguably the highest loss the Saints have been involved in that I went to, and that was against Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval in round 7. So you might be wondering why this is a bit higher than, all of the other losses for the Saints. I enjoyed my time there despite the loss. I actually enjoyed most of the trip there. I went up. The day trip was fun. Lined up with Finn before the game to get the best seats. So we got the best general admission seats you can get. Then I got to go on the ground beforehand for the Guard of Honor. That was really cool because I didn't think there was a chance at doing that. Halftime was cool. Never tear us apart. The Anzac ceremony and all that. The result was probably the worst part. We lost by 10, but I thought we'd lose by more. Compared to the game bottom, Adelaide St Kilda, this is miles better than that game. And after the highest ranking Saints loss, we probably have the lowest ranking Saints win, and it's Saints North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. It's probably in the average tier. Even though this is the first game the Saints scored over 100, which I was sort of happy about. It was just an average game of footy. For a lot of neutrals, it was good to see the Saints get on a decent score and get a good win, but it was against North, so it didn't mean much. Yeah, after halftime, we actually snuck into Medallion Club and sat level 2, so the seats were quite good, quite of an upgrade. Probably if it wasn't for that, this would be ranked a little bit lower. We're back with another Gather Round game. Port Adelaide and Essendon at the Adelaide Oval. This is after the Norwood game, and both games on the Friday were bad, but this was a bit better because at the Adelaide Oval, and I remember Ryder Henshey surprised everyone that he was at Gather Round because he said to everyone he wasn't going. A couple of my good mates were at this game as well, so it was good to meet all of them at the Adelaide Oval. That was really fun, and then the mosh pit after the game as well was cool, but the game was pretty crap. It really was pretty crap. In the second half, I was on the hill, and I don't think I could tell you a single highlight that happened. In 31st spot, we have Collingwood and Brisbane at the MCG. Now, in this game, Collingwood won by a point, so if you didn't know any better and you looked at this, you'd probably go, what the hell are you doing having this so low? Unfortunately, I went to the first half of this game. I wasn't planning on going to this game at all, but I had time to kill before St Kilda Geelong. I was in the city all day. For the time I was there, it was pretty good. I got to witness one of the goals of the year from Nick Dacott, and he was right in front of me. That was really cool. For that alone, it's high, but I only went to the first half. This might actually be the record for earliest I've ever left a game at footy, and it had to end up being a thriller. Now, coming in 30th position, we have Collingwood and Sydney at the MCG. The first game I went to for the season, so that in itself is going to give it a few bonus points and have it go up a few positions because, as I always say, round 1, the vibes are high, new footy season, you want to go to as many games as possible, and, get your match day vlogs out. So that was good in that sense. I remember I really wanted Sydney to win. I tipped them. I was cheering them on. So that was actually really fun. And we also got to see the Pies flag get unveiled also. So, yeah, that was a really fun experience, even though the Pies were pretty bad and it wasn't really a close game at all. In 29th spot, we have St Kilda and Gold Coast at Marvel, round 13. It was one of the worst games probably to watch as a neutral, despite the fact that the game ended up being close. It was low scoring, highly defensive. Both sides couldn't attack and didn't know where the goals were, kept chipping it around. We seemed to always win against Gold Coast no matter what, and we found a way to win. And we didn't want this game to be the first Gold Coast away win of the year. It wasn't. Max King got a controversial free kick with 5 minutes to go, and he kicked the goal. And I was actually so fucking excited over that game for some reason when the final siren went, because we never seem to win close games of footy. 28th position, the final game that I have in the average tier is Adelaide and Melbourne, the first game for Gather Round. Really average game, I feel like, if you wanted to watch this game on TV, because Adelaide didn't really fire too much of a shot, even though I thought they were going to win. But because it was the first game for Gather Round, and I had this as the same criteria last year against the Blues, it ranks a lot higher for the whole experience, and the fact that so many creators that I never saw all together in one area before actually occurred during this game, and it was really cool for that, like sitting on the hill. Always for the first game of the Gather Round seems to be the most disappointing one, or really disappointing game-wise. I don't think Adelaide really had too much of a chance at all. They made a mini comeback, but yeah, they just weren't really that impressive, and Melbourne was certainly the better side. All right, we move to the games that I think are now good, in my opinion, and we have St Kilda West Coast. Marvel Stadium, we won by 72 points. Now, to most people, this game would be quite an average one. In fact, maybe in bad. But Saints haven't won by more than 10 goals or 72 points in quite a while. I think the biggest win the Saints have had since 2017. So, biggest win in 7 years, it's got to have to be in a decent position. And it was. Unfortunately, I got to this game a bit late because of the bus replacement. So that probably brings it back down a little bit. But moved to Isle 29, as I've mentioned a couple times this video, in the second half. And yeah, actually got to see goals in Isle 29 for once, so that was good. 26th position, we have the first game at Mount Barker. This is between Gold Coast and GWS. The seats we were in were really cool, and I think any game at Mount Barker always is going to go high because of how unique of a footy experience it is. Yes, it wasn't the first time I went to Mount Barker, a game there, but I still have it in 26th spot. The quality of the game was actually of a really high standard. A lot of goals, quite high scoring. I think I certainly overstayed my welcome though, because I should have left this game much earlier to head to St Kilda Richmond, which we'll talk about a little bit later on this video. 25th spot, we have Adelaide and Richmond at the Adelaide Oval in round 13. The Tigers got their second win of the season and won by 8 points. Big upset. I think I tipped Adelaide by like 60 to win this game like an idiot. And everyone called for Matthew Nicks out, I'm pretty sure, after this game. The reason why I went to this game, you might be wondering, is because it was the day before the big Div 12 Rezzies game that I wanted to go to. We went to this game and watched it on the hill. Good to have a chat with the likes of Annie Munro, Checkers, Shrey were there, Kaden McDonald, all of the big, creators and all that were there. So it was good to get there for that game. It was actually quite a close game at the end of the day. I actually quite enjoyed it. So good day at the hill, had a few drinks. 24th on the list, another Mount Barker game, this time between West Coast and Sydney. I had this one a little bit higher. I took a great mark behind the goals before the game started. West Coast had their really cool kits that they were wearing. Carly Reid kicked his first ever goal. Lots of things happened during this game. West Coast were actually playing surprisingly good footy as well, I remember. There's never a dull experience at Mount Barker with games. I've always rated the ground quite highly and the experiences there. And I only watched the first 3 quarters. I left the game a little bit early, but I still have it in 24th spot because it was good fun with the people I was there with. Alrighty, in 23rd spot, we have St Kilda and Richmond at Marvel Stadium. Such a chill game at the footy. Now, I only went to this game for a half because of the Carlton v Hawthorn game that I filmed my ticket video at. But when I got to this game, I didn't worry about filming a vlog or anything like that. I just worried about just watching the Saints. Yeah, the first game, in quite a while, where I didn't have to worry about a vlog or anything. I could just actually enjoy watching the Saints play, and they played quite well. Piled on some goals in the second half, sitting in the Saints cheer squad. Just a really chill game at the footy, and that's why I have it in the good tier, because it was actually quite good to have that happen. 22nd spot, we have the Bulldogs and the Cats at the Adelaide Oval. This was another gather round game. We're getting through some of these gather round games, and I could have had this one higher if I actually remembered the game, but I don't, because I had just too much to drink. If you saw the vlog where I went to every game at gather round, you probably know why that was the case. So yeah, I don't remember much of this game. I remember there were so many creators there I had a chat with. There were bits I remember that were pretty fun. Close game at gather round. The Saturday night game is always one of the better games of the year, the gather round games. So it'd be ranked, a bit higher if I remembered more of it. 21st spot, we have Melbourne Port Adelaide at the MCG. This is where I filmed my $1 ticket video, the $500 ticket video. And this is the $1 ticket. Now, there'd be some people saying, oh, why is this so high? It was a $1 ticket. You made yourself suffer for the video. But that's the point of it. The whole point was to actually do that. And it was really fun filming that video. Like, just going up to the very top of level 4, pissing around. In the first quarter, we sat down in that eating area outside of the stands and all that. Like, that was so interesting. Something that I've never done before. Then we moved in the second half. You know, Kate and McDonald and Marmalade were there. And then the game ended up being close, even though the game was a really, like, one of the worst close games of the year for sure. It was still good to see a close game. Like, that, it's going to rank up a few spots. And the atmosphere was terrible, but that was the charm of the game. Like, the crappy atmosphere, crappy seats, but it was fun to film. 20th spot, we have another gather round game between Collingwood and Hawthorn in round 4. Now, this is a game where I decided to run to from Nord for some reason, and I made it for the last quarter, and only just that, but it was a really fun last quarter because Hawthorn made a massive charge. I was sitting close to the Hawthorn cheer squad. Hawthorn would have won this game. It'd be ranked quite a bit higher, but I'm going to have it in 20th spot because I only got to the game for a quarter, but it was still really fun to be a part of and exciting to see the Hawks make a surge in the end against the Pies. Another gather-round game in 19th spot, we have Richmond and St Kilda at Norwood Oval. The game didn't start the way I wanted it to. I missed the first quarter because I was stuck at bloody Mount Barker, and I'm pretty sure it was Richmond that kicked the first 5 goals to nothing at quarter time, and Saints couldn't get on the scoreboard until late in the second quarter. So it didn't start off the way I wanted to, but then when the Saints made that comeback in the second half, I know it was only against Richmond, but still, the vibes at Norwood were high, and I was all there for it. It was really fun. It was a really fun day at the footy. The first St Kilda win I experienced for gather round, and then after the game, I went on to Norwood Oval for the first time. I had a kick. Really nice ground to have a kick at as well. So the whole game, despite the start, which was really crap, it definitely made up for it, the fact that the Saints won. They made a comeback. In 18th spot, we have North and Freo in round 2. The Dockers won by 26 points, but I like this game for more reasons than just the fact that, it was just a whatever game. Good vibes. I was there with Druzy and Ryder Henchy. I decided to change from North to Freo. It was a good decision because North started well, but Freo made a really good comeback. And I was in the Freo cheer squad, and it was really fun to support Freo. It was also the same game Shrey did that famous coin toss as well, so I was there to watch that. That was funny. It was just a fun game. It was a good day to be a part of. Got onto the ground after, met some girls. It was a good game at the footy. Good day at the office, and that's why it's ranked quite highly. In 17th spot, I have the first final on the list. This is the worst of the 4 that I went to for 2024. It's Sydney v Port. I just had a feeling ultimately Port were never really going to show up against Sydney, and that's what happened. Like, they were pretty average, the Power, which was quite disappointing. The pre-game was really fun, though, going to the function, the Port Adelaide March. I was quite disappointed with how Port Adelaide played, but it was still, a final, really good atmosphere, the SCG. First final at the SCG as well. But if the Power actually decide to show up, for God's sakes, then this, would have been ranked possibly in the best tier. 16th position, we have the Hawthorn and Carlton game in round 22. The last game in good. Now, if only this game was a lot closer, because the reason why it's this high with how big of a smashing that it ended up being was because of the seats I was sitting in. I was in a corporate box for the ticket video. And it was so bloody good to be a part of, like, free drinks, free food. The food was so good. Like, I didn't think the food was going to be that great. The food was really good. We got free drinks, free footy record. What else more could you want, honestly, at a footy game? Like, it was one of the best corporate boxes you could get as well. It was literally level 2 on the wing. It was a great day for it as well. And it was a massive game, Hawthorn and Carlton. It was to shape up the top 8. And I don't know what happened to Carlton on the day, but they just were shithouse. They kept dropping like flies injury-wise. And Hawthorn obliterated them, though, from quarter time onwards. So if the game was closer, this could have been a possible candidate for top 5 games. Unfortunately, it's only going to be 16th because the game just wasn't that great. We head to the great games now of the year. We have, I think, 10 of them in the great tiers. And we're starting off with the round 8 game between the Bulldogs and the Hawks. Now, I only went to this game for like a half and a bit, but, the finish was worth it. Like, I migrated into the Hawthorn cheer squad in the second half and really tried to ride on the Hawks. I wanted them to win for some reason, maybe because they were a pretty crap team. They just lost to Sydney the week before. And it was the final game of the travel week as well. So, it was a success of a week. I relaxed for the last half and it was a really good finish. Hawthorn ended up winning by 7 points in a high quality game. 14th spot, we have another Bulldogs Hawthorn game. This is the elimination final at the G. Now, once again, like the Carlton Hawthorn game, I would have had this one a bit higher if the game was a bit better. Now, I'm still going to have it high. It was an elimination final. The hype for this game leading into it was massive. Like, the 2 most exciting teams arguably the final series, face to face. And I ended up getting some pretty good spots in level 1. I decided on the day to support Hawthorn because I was near Hawthorn fans. But after quarter time, it was just all Hawthorn, and I wanted it to be a lot closer, obviously. If it was, it would have been one of the best games for sure. But the atmosphere was so good, considering I think there were like 97k. It was a record crowd. 13th position, we have Melbourne and Geelong. Another game in round 8 that I went to for probably like a half and a bit. Got there midway through the second, and it was a snooze fest because no teams could score a goal, but it ended up building up quite well and became a thriller between some quality sides at the time. Bailey Fritsch kicked the match winner, the dribble kick in the other pocket, and yeah, even though I didn't really care who won, I went crazy for Bailey Fritsch to piss off Chris. I was there at the game with UCAT as well. He was over in Melbourne for round 8, but it was one of the best neutral games I went to for the fact that it was a close game. High pressure, high intensity. 12th spot, I have St Kilda and Essendon at Marvel Stadium. Such a satisfying way to win when you smash Essendon. Like, this is the polar opposite of the game that I had ranked a whole lot lower earlier in this video because we smashed Essendon, so we got a bit of payback. The only time I decided to say yes to sitting with Sammy for a Saints game, and I'm fucking glad I did that because I gave him a lot of crap when they lost, and they didn't just lose, they got smashed. And yeah, Essendon fans obviously were really, really concerned after this game because they were expected to beat the Saints. I'm pretty sure they were still expected to make finals, and that game basically just ended their chances just about. And yeah, it was disappointing for Essendon fans, but I didn't really care. It was a great day, and it deserved me the great tier for sure. 11th spot, we have the Easter Monday game between Hawthorn and Geelong. This is such a fun game of footy to go to. It's such an underrated and unique game. As kind of expected, Geelong were the dominant side because it was what happened in that last quarter that elevates this to 11th spot. When the lightning delay occurred and the big break happened, it just ensued chaos. Like, no one knew what to do, like how long to wait. People started running on the ground, and they ran on the ground literally at the end that I was sitting at. So I saw it all unfold in front of my eyes. You know, people getting kicked out left, right, and center. It was a slip and slide. It was crazy, was like what was happening. And then most of the people that were in the cheer squad at the time just left. It was just so crazy and random, and it was fun to be a part of, and I'm glad I went to that game. I really am glad. 10th spot, St Kilda Collingwood at the MCG. One of my favourite Saints wins of the season for sure. I mean, we played Collingwood, a side that still were the reigning premiers. They started 0-2, but they were still the reigning premiers, and quite a high quality game of footy. I remember sitting with Marmalade and a few of the other lads as well. Yeah, it was a tight game of footy for a lot of it. I know Collingwood made a few surges and Saints got back on top. Jack Higgins kicked that crazy goal in that last quarter, and I went crazy when that happened, and then we just did enough to hold on at the MCG on a Thursday night, and it was a perfect setup for what was a really fun round 2 of footy, where I went to a bunch of games that week. Round 9, we have another Saints game. This is definitely one of my favourite Saints games, probably in my top 3. When we play the Cats, and we beat them by 18 points in round 23. Now, we started the game terribly for some reason. Like, Geelong were just all over the Saints. We just couldn't really get any passage of play going. Geelong fans were super cocky at halftime, which was quite, annoying. But somehow the Saints just turned it around in that 3rd and 4th quarter, and we just obliterated Geelong. And the Geelong, they really should have won this game for a home qualifying final, but choked it in the bag. The Saints scored over 100 and won the game by 3 goals. Goat HQ, sucked in, mate, because I remember giving him a lot of crap. In 8th spot, this is my favourite game from Gatheran, Fremantle Carlton. Now, not the closest game scoreboard-wise, but to me, it was always the closest game from start to finish. It was a really tight, high pressure, not a very high scoring and free flowing game of footy at all. I think at this point of the time they were undefeated and Carlton were just about the same. So it was 2 heavyweights going at each other, and it was a really good contest for all of it, really. Unfortunately, it was a controversial ending, and I wanted Freo to win for that reason. Getting myself prepared for the big game, Geelong v Bulldogs, which I didn't remember much about. But no, this is an awesome game. And then belting out the Carlton cheer squad after with Will Arnott and a few other Carlton fans just going off my head. 7th spot, we have Carlton Collingwood at round 8. A few round 8 games are making their way up in the great tiers, but this is probably the best game that I went to in round 8. There were so many ebbs and flows this game. It kept going back and forth. I couldn't pick a winner. And in that last quarter, it was Nick Dacos that was the hero with only a couple minutes to go. Spent 3 hours getting to this game, riding to the game on my bike, but it was worth it in the end because it was an absolute cracker of a contest. And in 6th spot, I have the second Carlton-Collingwood game. This is just a little bit better because A, I didn't have to sweat to get to the game, and B, I think the game was just a little bit better finish-wise. Like, I remember this one was a bit of a crap one. Carlton kept kicking a lot of behinds and just kept kicking themselves out of it, but then they made that fight back late. It was Pendlebury's 400th game as well, which is a big occasion. The lead up to this game as well was pretty cool with Lenny. I think we headed up in a limousine and all that, so that was fun. And the game certainly lived up to the expectations for what a Carlton-Collingwood game should really end up being like. Really close at the end. Mitch McGovern had a chance to win the game after the siren, so it was a kick after the siren, but he butchered the kick, and the Pies won the game by 3 points. They probably deserved to win the game, but probably better than the first Carlton-Collingwood game. So that makes way for 5 more games, and these 5 games are the 5 games that I've decided to have in their own tier for the best of the best. At number 5, we have Essendon and Collingwood, Anzac Day, round 7 at the MCG. It ended up being a draw. So my first Anzac Day draw, I don't get to experience many draws, that's for sure. But it was a really good game of footy. So many highlights that occurred. Essendon started super with the first 4 goals, I think. Jamie Elliott took one of the marks of the year. Collingwood made a surge. Langford kicked a bag of goals. He probably should have won them the games. After the siren sounded, I could not explain the feeling of the crowd with a draw. Like, there was no club song for any team to celebrate. It was just really dead. Like, a really eerie feeling. But the game in itself, Anzac Day, massive game, 95k plus. 4th place, I have Saints Sydney, Marvel Stadium. This is always going to be very high up there when you beat the side first on the ladder. And the way you beat them in a thriller, and you had to come from behind to do it. Because I tipped the Saints heading into this game. I actually, for some reason, went, nah, screw everyone else. The Saints are going to beat the Swans. I don't know why I thought that, but I went on with it, and it didn't look good at one stage when we were down by like 35 points or whatever, but we ended up clawing our way back in that second half like the Cats game, and somehow managed to hold on. And when that final siren sounded, I was absolutely going insane. Like, I could not believe it. 3rd place. This is my favourite Saints game of the year, and it just edges the Sydney game because of the way it happened. It was Carlton St Kilda. One of the best games I think the Saints have been a part of, if not the best. Last game of the round, the best of the last games of the round for sure. I thought the Saints were done with 30 seconds to go, and when Higgins got that snap off, I don't know how it worked its way back through the goals, but when he did, as you would imagine, I went absolutely crazy. Probably the most crazy I went off at a game all year. The final play of the Saints all year, and it was arguably the best of the season. So, such a good feeling to beat Carlton away from home as well. It's always a good feeling to beat the Blues in a thriller. Too bad that they ended up making finals. All right, the top 2, we have Port Adelaide v Hawthorn at the Adelaide Oval. Semi-final. I went to this game for a video that I still need to release, actually. This is a cracker of a game. I remember Port Adelaide, no one really gave him much of a chance heading into it after the week before with what they did against the Cats and with how Hawthorn played against the Bulldogs, but I still had a feeling this game was going to be quite close, and it definitely was. Like, it was such a high intensity game. Like, you'd expect during the finals, tackle after tackle. Port started the better side. Hawthorn, as always, gradually got their way back into it, and it was an absolute tight tussle in that last quarter. You just couldn't pick a winner. I wanted Hawthorn to win massively, but they didn't win. So that was disappointing, but you can't take away from the fact that that was the best game of the year. Well, at that point that I went to. But it's not number 1, because number 1 was Brisbane and Geelong at the MCG. The prelim final, I don't know if this is the best game of the year, like just overall, but that I went to, it ranks number 1 for a few reasons. Like, one, the game was awesome. The skills and the quality, the goals that occurred. The first quarter was low scoring, but from there it opened up big time. I was there with Blaze 17 in the best seats you could wish for a game like that. I was near all the action in level 1, but it was so cool to see all the goals happen in front of me. The Henry goal, the Cameron goal, the Myers goal. I couldn't pick a winner, honestly. I wanted Brisbane to win, but I just couldn't pick a winner until the last few moments where Brisbane kicked a couple late ones to make it to a grand final, and we all know what happened from there. They won the flag, and that was the final game I actually went to for the whole year. Well, that ends the list right there. My favourite game, Geelong v Brisbane, and my least favourite game, Adelaide St Kilda. If you guys have a list of games you want to put in the comments and provide a bit of reasoning, feel free to do so. Remember, I said before, if you want to see something similar with the best games I streamed of the year, then get this video to 500 likes, and I'll see what I can do for next week. But hopefully you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, and we'll see you soon for some more content.